Hello and welcome everyone to our part 2 of baricitinib. In this we will discuss the clinical evidence. In part 1 we discussed how baricitinib produced its effects in reducing COVID-19. It does it mainly by inhibiting the JAK2 receptor. Apart from that, it reduces the cellular entry of the virus by inhibiting the clathrin mediated endocytosis of the virus. So the study that we're going to discuss is the NEJM trial, which looked at the effect of baricitinib in COVID-19 cases. So the objective of this trial was based on the 3 case series which showed an improvement in oxygenation and reduction in select inflammatory markers in patients of COVID-19 when given baricitinib. After the success and completion of the Act 1 trial, the study was designed, that is the Act 2 trial, to look at the combination of baricitinib plus remdesivir and to see whether it is superior to remdesivir alone. The methods of this study: it was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study which began in the month of May and ended in July 1st. It was done in 67 trial centers over 8 countries, predominantly from United States. 55 sites were from United States, 4 from Singapore, 2 from South Korea, 2 from Mexico, 1 each from Japan, Spain, UK and Denmark. Eligible patients were randomly assigned in a 1:1 ratio to receive either remdesivir and baricitinib or remdesivir and a placebo. Randomization was stratified according to the trial site, disease severity at enrollment. Now, how the drugs were given: patient received remdesivir intravenously 200 mg loading dose on day 1, which was followed by 100 mg maintenance dose daily from day 2 through day 10 or until the patient was discharged from the hospital or there was death. Baricitinib was administered as a 4 mg daily dose, which was given as either 2 mg oral tablets or through the nasogastric tube for 14 days or until the hospital discharge. Now, patients with an estimated GFR less than 60 were receiving a dose of 2 mg once daily. Off-label use of marketed medications intended as specific treatment for COVID-19 was prohibited. The most important drug that was prohibited was steroids. This was a time when the recovery trial was still not out. Primary outcome. The primary outcome measure was the time to recovery, with day of recovery defined as first day during the 28 days of enrollment on which the patient attained a category 1, 2, 3 status in the 8 category ordinal scale of the WHO. Now let's see what the scales were. The first is the recovered scale, that is 1, 2 and 3, where the patient is not hospitalized without any limitations, or the 2 is not hospitalized but there is some limitation requiring home oxygen. 3 is hospitalized but not requiring supplemental oxygen. Having to be hospitalized made the patient category 4, and for category 5 the patient needed supplemental oxygen. If the patient was non-invasive or high flow, it was category 6. On ventilator or ECMO was category 7. Now let's see what was the trial result. Out of this, 1067 patients were assessed for eligibility. Almost 1030 patients were randomized, 515 in the combination group, 518 in the placebo plus remdesivir group. So if you look at the baseline demographic, the mean age was 55. The distribution was again mostly between the age group of 40 to 64. Almost 50% of the patients belonged to that group. Now, male was again more affected, 65%. Racial classification is given. The body mass index was around 32, which was slightly higher side. Mean time of onset of symptoms to randomization was 8 days. Disease severity, moderate severity was in 67, that is out of 3 every 2 patient was having moderate symptoms and 1 was having severe symptoms. Coexisting condition was 2 or more present in most of the patients. Now, scoring on the ordinal scale, 4, that is patient who were hospitalized but not requiring oxygen, was around 13%, who were on supplemental oxygen was around 55%, who were NIV was 21%, ventilator and ECMO was 11%. The patients were stratified based on these 5 criteria, so it is expected that there will be good matching in these points. Regarding geographic area, most of the patients were from US, 92%. Now let's see what was the outcome. Number of recoveries were slightly higher in the baricitinib group compared to the placebo group. This difference was more pronounced in the group 5 and group 6, and it was not so much pronounced in group 4 and group 7. Median time to recovery was also much better in the people who had less disease. Now, if we look at the overall results, there was a significant difference in the patients who recovered if they were given baricitinib. Recovered means the patient reached a criteria of 1, 2 or 3 from whatever the severity they were admitted with. If the baseline was 4, then there was not much difference between the two groups. You can see the graph, it is almost similar. But the difference started to increase if the severity increased. In the ordinal score 5, there was an increased difference between the two groups. This was much more pronounced in the group 6, that is the patients who were on NIV and HFNO. So you can see there is a marked difference in the outcome from baricitinib versus placebo. But surprisingly, this difference was less pronounced if the severity increased, that is the patient who were on ventilator or ECMO, the difference was not seen. Now this could be because of the fact that the patient load was very less. Only 100 patients belong to this group. The median time to event was slightly better in baricitinib, 6 days versus 8 days. Now hospitalization was similar. Requirement of oxygen was less in patients who were receiving baricitinib. Even the new use of ventilator and ECMO was less in the patients who received baricitinib, significantly less. Now conclusion of the authors is that baricitinib plus remdesivir was superior to remdesivir alone in reducing the recovery time and accelerating improvement in clinical status among patients with COVID-19, notably among those receiving high flow oxygen or non-invasive ventilation. This is the most important conclusion, that the effect was more pronounced in the category 6, that is the who were given high flow oxygen and non-invasive ventilation. Why this would be the case is something very difficult to understand right now. This combination is associated with very few side effects, so it can be used in this group of patients, that is those who are requiring oxygen or on high flow on NIV. The other and one of the most important limitations of this study is that the manufacturer of the drug, that is Eli Lilly, were actively involved in the making of the protocol and also the writing of the manuscript. So we cannot rule out a bias in the formation of this study and the results that are being presented. But it is said that they have not funded anything, they were just involved in the research process. The funding was mainly done by the National Institute of Health. Now apart from this one study, there are other studies which are enrolled right now. Almost 8 to 9 studies are being going on. So let's see what is the result from those trials. These are the studies which are getting enrolled. These are big trials which are undergoing in Canada and Denmark. Now apart from these two antiviral agents, we have a third agent, that is the complement inhibition. These agents are also being now looked into, whether they can also reduce the tissue damage by the cytokine storm that is produced by SARS-CoV-2. Now our take home from this is that in this particular study, the major problem was the fact that steroids were not used. If we compare the effect of steroids versus baricitinib, then we may find there is a very little difference between the two groups. But one of the most important factor is that there is a huge cost difference between steroids and baricitinib. Even the availability of steroids is much more than baricitinib. Especially in a pandemic situation, it is very difficult to recommend these expensive drugs which are very rarely available as a modality of treatment. Considering the positive outcomes of the recovery and the subsequent trials with steroid, it is more recommended to go for steroids than go for these specific inhibitors, and these may be utilized in individual situations in very specific group of patients, but for overall management during this pandemic, it is better to stay with steroids. Thank you for your patience, and check our website for further information.